In this tutorial, what I'm wanting to show is how we build this little kind of spaceship thing. This is done entirely using tools that we've done in the past, but we are covering this one in class, so I want to make sure that there's a video reference here so you can see all of the tools that we use during the actual process. This is done almost entirely with the pen tool, a little bit of shape, and then also the pathfinder in order to cut holes in the ring around the edge. What I'm mostly going to focus on is using the pen tool to accomplish what we need to create this spaceship. What I'm going to start off with is by hitting Command R or Control R on PC, and I'm going to click in there and drag out a guide. This guide's going to go in the middle. It's going to tell me exactly where my source point is, because basically what I'm going to do is build half of this spaceship, duplicate and flip it. That's the best way to acquire symmetry when you're working on a project. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to glance at that for reference just to make sure I remember basically what I'm doing. And you'll notice that that is a mix of hard angles and then curves. Mostly hard angles, so that's fairly simple, but it does have one curve there. So we'll have to convert that anchor point while we're going through the process. You can see the previous video on the pen tool for reference. So I'm just going to go to my guide and I'm going to click my first point here, and then I'm going to let the guides kind of help me find my way through. I'm going to click here, here, and what I really want to do is go ahead and get the main body of this worked out first. So probably something, trying to measure out basic distance, something like this, and then always come back up to complete the shape. This is something that is often forgotten. You have to come back up there to complete the shape, so that this can now be filled with color. Really not that color. Let me move it back so that it snaps against it. Okay, the main thing I'm going to do now is create this kind of wing that goes along the outside. So I'm going to come down a little bit, give it some space, and then I'm going to bend out this basic shape of the wing. And I could just keep going, but that means it would continue the curve. That's not at all what I want. So what I have to do is convert this anchor point so I can go back to straight lines. So I hold down Alt, and then I go to that anchor point and click it. You'll notice that line disappeared, letting me know there's a curve behind, but there's not going to be a curve ahead. And then I'm going to go down and continue. My shape. So somewhere down here. And a little bit further in. I'll let this kind of guide down. It's freaking out a little bit as it tries to fill in this shape, but I'm not worried at all until I actually finish it out. Once I finish out the shape is when I should be concerned about what it looks like. Go back up here to the top and complete that. And this is my basic shape for it. It's going pretty well so far. This isn't the most beautiful one I've done, but it's going to get the job done for the purposes of this tutorial. So now with these two pieces, these are two separate shapes. I'm going to use the Pathfinder to merge them together. Again, that's the first button on Pathfinder. If you hover over it, it says Unite in a very patriotic way. And now I have this solid shape. So with this solid shape, I'm going to copy and paste, Object, Transform, Reflect. This is something we've done a lot of. Opens up this little dialog box, which it keeps putting on my other monitor. And I can click the preview icon to make sure it's doing what I want, and it is. So I'll move it down here, and here's my basic spaceship. So this has gone fairly well so far. That didn't have much issue to it. Now I have these two pieces, and I can unite them and create a single shape. That also means that now that I've done it, I can get this nice action stance here, more or less, by rotating it, holding shift, and making sure I get it at a 45-degree angle. In fact, next to the cursor you can see the number has popped up there to tell me. If I let go of shift, I can get whatever angle I want. But if I hold shift, I can do 45, 90, so on and so forth. 45 is perfect. So there's a 45-degree angle there. I forgot to do one thing, but actually I can use that as an example. So I'm going to do that. What I want to add is this little window at the top. This is where the window to the cockpit is, and it's going to be an oval, just a basic oval. I'm going to grab the ellipse tool from the side, and I'm going to draw that out, something like this. I'm going to change the color so that it's nice and visible. And you can see why I shouldn't have turned my plane yet, because I had forgotten to put this up there. But because I held shift and got this to a 45-degree angle, it's easy to match, because all I have to do is start to rotate this, hold shift, and put it at a 45-degree angle. And then voila, super easy. Then all I have to do, actually made that a little too large, now I've made it too small. Let's look for the happy medium. Try to line that up in there. Still not as easy as it could have been if I had done it beforehand. And then I'm going to go up to the minus front option of the Pathfinder with both of them selected and allow that cockpit to cut through, so this is still one solid shape. The next thing that I'm going to put together is this kind of circle that goes around. You can see that it kind of fits all around, starting at the edge of the wing. It gives me the feeling of flying over the planet or something like that. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to draw out a nice large circle. I'm going to remove the fill from it, and I'm going to give it a stroke of the same color and then increase that stroke weight a little bit more than that, probably something in the area of 20. Now obviously this doesn't fit quite right just yet. I do want it to be over the edge of the wing, but I want it to come in a little bit closer, which means I'm going to have to scale this down just a little. Something like this. Now we've looked at this before. This is a stroke. If you look really closely, you can see that the line runs directly through the middle of it. So in other words, it's not a real shape. It's just the stroke. In other words, the Pathfinder will not work on it. So what I need to do is to convert this over to a shape. Again, this is something we've done before, and it's also fairly simple. If I go up to the Object menu, Path, Outline Stroke, you'll notice the outlines move to the edge, and this is now officially a shape that I can cut just like I do anything else. So what I'm going to do is, like you see down here on my little source image, I'm going to cut out a nice shape that fits along the edge of the wing. And I'm going to do that, we've done it before by using shapes from the shape tool. I'm actually going to do it using the pen tool this time to create a custom shape that fits nicely, cuts a perfect gap right there along the edge of the wing. I'm going to change to a color that I can see, and then I'm going to use the pen tool to kind of craft this shape. The outside of it doesn't really matter at all. What matters is that I match it up inside. Close out the shape by going back to my original point and clicking, and then I can select these two, use the Pathfinder, and now I have a nice clean cut. This one was probably a little too high. I would probably go back and do that again. And this one may even be a little bit too close. So trial and error. Usually I had to do these things more than once, but again, we're in tutorials, so who really cares? What I'm going to do next is look at what I've done here, adding type to the image over the top of the wing. And this one has a little bit of complexity to it. If I can remember here, find myself a good typeface to go with it. I'm blanking a little bit on what the name of the actual one that I use is, which is okay. And besides, I'm not seeing it anyway. So what we're going to go with is just to type something like this. Let's see, I think I just wrote the word Spaceship. And I also think it did not save what I had chosen. Okay, it is flatly refusing to use that one, so let's choose another one. See, this looks nice and spaceshipy. On a previous tutorial I was showing tracking, so I got to turn that off because it's a bit much right now. And I'm going to increase the size, rotate per usual to 45 degrees, and I'm going to place that directly over it. Change the color to white. And honestly, that type actually works just fine for it. It's even a bit more readable. And here's the problem though. If I select this whole thing, this whole shebang, and move it out here, you can see that I really want that text to be showing through to the background. I want to use it to cut through just like I would using the Pathfinder. But that's a little bit complex. We talked some about this in the previous tutorial where I talked about handling text in Illustrator, but what I have to do is go up to the Type menu, create outlines, and it would be nice if I could just cut through using this entirely, but I can't. What I have to do is go up to the Object menu. It went through an automated process when I converted it, and like anything that has multiple elements to it, Illustrator will automatically group them. You can see this because I'm able to ungroup them. Just that is what lets me know that they are in fact grouped. So now I should be able to select these and move them separately, which I don't really want to do. But what I have to do now, in fact, I'm going to select all these and change their color just so this change is really obvious. Okay, I'm going to change to a color that's not that bad. There we go. Something green, something easy to see. I can select this in my spaceship, minus front, and cut through. I can select the P and my spaceship, minus front, cut through. Select the A, so on. Whoop, that was a bit much. Select the A, minus front, and I'm doing something wrong. Oh, and that would be why. This is actually a really good example and a good teaching moment. This is one reason why it pays to go through these blind. I haven't done this in several months. When I cut through it, you'll notice it created a separate shape here that is part of this P. It kind of hovers by itself. Whenever that happens, the Pathfinder itself is an automated process within the software. So now if I select my spaceship, you'll see that it itself was grouped during that process because that piece of the P is hovering. It's not connected to the actual spaceship itself. So in order to continue doing my Pathfinder thing as I have been, I have to ungroup this, select it, select the A, cut through. But now because the A has a similar element floating in the middle, I'll actually have to ungroup it again before it will allow me to continue. Now I can select the C, minus front, select the E, minus front, so on and so forth, continuing forward, and cutting through. Now what we have are all of these elements. I can move them over the background. You can see that it cuts completely through. This is now a clean single piece logo, more or less. And what I can do with these is now group them to make sure that nothing ever gets lost. I can group them together, and they now move in tandem and are one cohesive piece. So this is the basics of pulling this one together. My spaceship doesn't look as handsome as it did in the original iteration, but that's okay. For demonstration purposes, hopefully this helps you see the methodology for building one of these. You always want a finished logo to be like this one, where it's one single piece that I can move over any background and be able to see through any gap that was supposed to be there. If I was just to leave that text white, it would look fine here, but then when somebody printed it on a t-shirt, I'd have white text over a red spaceship over, let's say, whatever color the t-shirt is, black, gray, blue. You always want it to show through. So with this one, this can now be changed to single colors, really easy to work with, and that's what you want from a logo.